Sorry I haven't made any videos. I've been busy not making videos. Now, I think it's fair to say that a good chunk of the videos that I've posted on this channel have been focused around the absurdity or the flaws of cars in the supercar category, whatever you want to classify a supercar as. And this isn't me being negative just for the sake of being negative. I think it's an interesting perspective, especially from an owner of cars like this, that ultimately I enjoy very much, which is why I own them, to point out that they're not perfect. And ultimately, I think what it comes down to is that a lot of these fundamental flaws is what makes the experience so special over more, I guess, normal vehicles. If you want to watch videos of people driving supercars and screaming that it's the best thing ever, there's plenty of content like that already on the internet. So with all of that in mind, somewhat in response to the 5 things they don't tell you about owning a supercar video that I made, I wanted to share a bunch of things that I really enjoy about owning and driving around in a supercar. That ultimately are very personal reasons, because I think everybody has their own thing that they really like about a particular experience or a vehicle or whatever it may be. I quite like this. So we'll start with the obvious, and I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but I enjoy driving cars of any kind, supercar or not. And I think a lot of people probably have the same mindset. Even if I'm in a crappy rental car or something like that, my immediate instinct is to see how fast it goes. If that's the case, you probably just enjoy driving in general, and you're going to have fun in almost anything that you're driving. I've worked very hard to get to this point in my life where I can afford a car like this, and like I've talked about in previous videos in regards to whether or not a supercar is actually worth it, you can make the argument that you can have just as much fun in a cheaper car. I actually agree with that, but I think what can't be argued is that the experience of a supercar versus a normal car, even if it's a normal performance car, it's just not the same thing. And honestly, that very unique experience on offer is something that I see a lot of value in and am willing to pay for. Therefore, it's totally worth it, and it's something that I really do enjoy. And let's say in an alternate universe, I didn't make it to this point in my life. I really feel like I would still make it a financial priority to have something to drive that I really enjoy driving at a lower cost. Honestly, I'd probably end up with a Mustang GT or something like that, just because it's fun to drive, it sounds good, and I'd have a really good time. Moving on, in a previous video, I talked about how other people on the road drive around you when you're in a supercar. And this isn't everybody, obviously, and it's also something that I think is going to depend on where you live. If you live somewhere where there's a high concentration of supercars, you're going to have the drivers around you react a lot differently. They're probably just going to treat it as a normal car, but if you live in an area where a supercar is not so common, you're going to get a lot of people that are excited to see the car. They tailgate you, they drive in your blind spot. Some of them even try to follow you home. That's never a fun experience, no matter what kind of mood that you're in. But the reactions in general, both from people in cars as well as in parking lots or just on the street in general, while you get some people that I definitely think overreact, and it can get a little bit uncomfortable depending on how, I guess, aggressively they want to state how excited they are about the vehicle that you're driving and how excited they are to meet you, because there's some weird people out there, let's not lie. But it's kind of cool to be driving down the street sometimes and have people really get excited about the car that you're driving. Seeing people smile, seeing that the vehicle that you're driving around in brought somebody joy for that split second it's kind of a cool thing. Even if you're not into cars, I think we've all been that kid riding in the back seat or walking down the sidewalk and you see a Ferrari or a Lamborghini drive by, and it's an exciting moment. So to be on the opposite side of that experience, it's kind of cool. Stereotype of people that drive supercars is that they're douchebags, and having met quite a number of supercar owners, that stereotype is true in a lot of cases, not all of course, but there are people that have done well for themselves in life and they choose to live a certain lifestyle, or at least make people think that they're living a certain lifestyle, and a supercar is an image that people perceive as being a sign of success. And unfortunately, I think that culture in general has shifted, especially amongst the younger generation, where everything that you have that is considered to be a luxury item is a flex. So there are a lot of people that buy a supercar and have no interest in learning how to drive it, don't even really care about cars that much. They just want to have it in their driveway so they can sit on the hood and take pictures. And then there's supercar owners that are kind of on the opposite end of the spectrum. And keep in mind, I'm generalizing all supercar owners into two categories, which isn't necessarily fair, but I think you get my point. These are people that buy the cars because they legitimately enjoy driving the cars. They appreciate the engineering and the effort and the beauty of what these cars have on offer, should you be able to afford them. And I think that the perception of a lot of people, unfortunately, is not that these types of owners exist. So what I really enjoy about driving around in a supercar is when I do meet somebody in a parking lot that's excited about the car, it's already kind of made their day. If I have the time, I'll sit there and have a 10-minute, 20-minute conversation with them about the car or about cars in general, because that's something that I truly enjoy. And I think that type of interaction with people is something that is part of the supercar experience, and ultimately it's going to be down to the owner in terms of what that experience ends up being like. But I think it's cool for people to meet other people that are in positions that they maybe aspire to be in one day, and see that they're still normal people. They just worked hard and got to this point. And I don't know, that type of, I guess, interaction is something that I really value about the supercar experience. I hate seeing people try to act like they're better than somebody else, and I feel like, unfortunately, that is part of the stereotype of people that drive cars like this. So anything that I can do, or any opportunity that I get to, I guess, prove that stereotype wrong, is something that I personally enjoy. Now, this next thing I think is super relatable for any kind of car enthusiast, but when it's a supercar, the feeling, I think, is that much more extreme, and that is walking back to your car in a parking lot. As I've talked about in a previous video, I'm very paranoid about door dings and stuff like that, so I tend to park at the back of a parking lot. If it's a big building that I'm going to, I'll typically try to park around the back or the side of the building where it's not clearly visible to the majority of the parking lot. And one of the coolest feelings for me every single time is when you're walking around the corner of the building and you get to see your car parked in the distance. It's just, that's cool. That feeling of walking up on a car like that is actually your car, is a feeling that never gets old. Now, not to get negative again, but at the start of the video, I talked about how some of the shortcomings of a supercar is ultimately why I enjoy them. And granted, I'm currently sat in an AMG GTR, which some people don't consider to be a supercar, even though it did set a lap record at the Nürburgring when it came out, which I would say is pretty supercar-y. But the reason why I'm driving this car and why I've kind of picked it as my daily driver is it's a little bit less compromised than a lot of other cars that are in the supercar category, like my Huracan Performante as an example. While you can daily drive that, it's highly compromised in a lot of ways. So I guess what I'm saying is somewhat contradictory, but I think it's cool to get in a car that is at least somewhat compromised, because it's a constant reminder that you're in something that's not normal. It's a special experience every single time you use it. And when your cup falls out of the cup holder, or it's a little bit loud on the highway, or the road's a little bit too bumpy considering the stiff suspension that the car has, you could view these as inconveniences, but for me, these are kind of more so reminders of, wow, this is a special experience, and I'm lucky to be in this position. For me, it's a very cool thing to open the front trunk or the frunk on my Lamborghini and slot in a duffel bag, and it takes up the entire trunk, and that's all the storage space I have. Or like when I go somewhere in my Alfa Romeo 4C and I arrive at my destination and my back is completely sweaty and everybody thinks I just went for a run, meanwhile I was just driving my Alfa. It's ridiculous in the most hilarious way possible. If I want it to be comfortable, I would stay home and sit on my couch. For me, comfort in a car is great if you're commuting, but I hate commuting. For me, when I get in a car, I want the experience to be different from anything else that I do on a daily basis. And these inconveniences, being uncomfortable in a car, but also really enjoying the driving experience, that for me is what makes a supercar so much fun. Now, some of you might think I'm weird for this next one, but I actually enjoy washing my cars. Now, granted, this is one of those situations where I do have to be in the mood, but when I am in the mood, I feel like washing the car is somewhat of a relaxing experience for me. I'm not a very relaxed person, and I think that's also part of the reason why I enjoy driving supercars. It's very much about all of your senses kind of, I guess, working at once, which to me is kind of a cool thing. Some people might view that as stressful, not me, but relaxing is something that I'm typically not very good at. But with washing a car, when done properly, of course, and I do plan on making some videos talking about washing a car in the future, so stay tuned to the channel for that. But I like to be able to take my time, and I think washing your own car, it gives you a chance to really, I guess, learn every single curve on the car and get an idea of how much effort actually went into the design of everything on that particular vehicle. Because when you get into the supercar category, they've typically taken everything into consideration. And I'm also somebody that's a little bit paranoid about stone chips and scratches and whatever it may be. And when you wash every square inch of your car, you get a really good idea of what's in perfect condition, what's seen a little bit of damage. Because inevitably, if you're driving these cars, they're so low to the ground, there's going to be little bits of damage that you may want to know about. And when you wash the car, you get an idea of where all those areas are and what exactly is going on. There's also the satisfaction of a job well done. Another weird thing that I enjoy is going to the gas station, where in a car like this that sucks gas like there's no tomorrow, you're going to be making frequent stops to the gas station, which ultimately I don't mind. Obviously, I've talked about how the attention comes whether you want it or not when you're driving around in a supercar. People are just curious about the car, they're curious about you, they want to spark up a conversation, and what better place to spark up a conversation than when you're both stuck at the pumps pumping gas in your car. So you do end up with some weird conversations with people that you maybe don't necessarily want to talk to, but you do also end up meeting some pretty cool people. And I guess it's the mystery of never knowing what to expect every single time you go to the gas station that I find to be, I guess, interesting at the very least. And then on that same note, the final thing that I really enjoy about the supercar experience is the opportunity to meet people that you otherwise probably wouldn't get to meet. Now, I briefly touched on this in the video where I talked about what I do for work, which, by the way, a lot of you guys have been asking me that in the comment section on some of my more recent videos. There's a video on the channel where I share the whole story. Go and watch that for those that are curious. But with a supercar, you're going to end up in situations where you're meeting other people with supercars, which I guess it's relatable that you both have cars in the same category, but it's also relatable in the sense that you've obviously both had some kind of success in life to be able to afford a car like that. And I hate these motivational speaker guys that try to sell you these programs that say, do these 10 steps to become successful, because I really don't think that's the right way to go about doing things. I think that success is a process where you have to kind of figure out your own way and what works for you, and it's hard work, it's dedication, it's all of those, I guess, what's the word I'm looking for here? It's all of those cliches that are actually pretty true in the grand scheme of things, but when you meet people like this that are so like-minded, you end up meeting people that not only bring, I guess, potential opportunity. One second. You meet people that you otherwise wouldn't normally meet. And this isn't by design, this is just living life with a car that you happen to be driving, and you meet somebody else with a car that they happen to be driving. And through these, I guess, types of interactions, I've made some really good friends that I really do believe I'll have for the rest of my life. And I've also had some opportunities brought forward that I wouldn't have otherwise had if not for me driving around in a supercar. And I'm not saying that you should go out and spend all of your money on a supercar for potential networking opportunities, that's not a good idea at all. But once you've made it to a certain point in your life and you're able to afford something like this, it does bring forth further opportunity because of what it is. And this isn't a situation that I think is specific to owning a supercar. If you have something in common with somebody else, at the very least, that is an opportunity for a conversation. And where that conversation goes, obviously that's going to depend on the specific person and specific situation. But even if a conversation with a like-minded person doesn't lead to a potential business opportunity, I guess opportunity to talk to somebody and learn from somebody who has done so well for themselves in life is something that I really value, and it's one of those things that you can't really pay for. Like I said earlier in the video, it's ultimately the car that draws all of the attention, and regardless of whether or not you're an outgoing person, which honestly I'm not, I'm kind of one of those people that goes out and keeps to myself for the most part, but because of cars like this, you are kind of forced into many more interactions that you otherwise would not have should you have been driving a more normal vehicle. So it's those opportunities of interactions that you never really know where they're going to go that I think is a big part of the reason why I enjoy driving a supercar at this point. And that pretty much concludes this video. Hopefully you enjoyed. If you did, be sure to support it with a like. If you have any questions regarding anything that I talked about in this video or anything else that you enjoy about supercars or cars in general that are maybe a little bit more obscure, I'd be curious to hear what those are down below in the comment section. If you guys have any video suggestions as well, feel free to leave that down below. And if you're not subscribed to the channel already, make sure you hit that subscribe button along with the little bell notification so you get notified when the next new video goes live. All my social media information, mainly my Instagram, is linked down below, so be sure to check that out if you haven't already. And other than that, guys, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.